Hi, I'm Ray from the Radio Workshop. This time talking about aerials. Very often on the back of a DAB, VHF, FM type, DAB type radio, you get a bit of wire like that. Or a telescopic aerial, okay? If you live close to a DAB transmitter, or an FM transmitter, if that's what you're listening to, fine. But, from what I've found, the majority of people inside, especially if you're in a basement flat or wherever, or downstairs in a house, you've got the walls all around you, DAB signals in particular can be pretty poor. An outside aerial is the answer. Now, before we start talking about outside FM and DAB aerials, see what radio you've got. Some of them, if you look at the back where the telescopic aerial comes out, some of them that will unscrew and you're left with an F socket, an F connector like this. That's an F connector, that's the socket. Okay, if that's the case, then it's quite easy to, on the end of the coax from the outside aerial, put an F connector male, which will then screw into the socket on the back of your radio. I think I've got, 3 or 4 radios capable of DAB and FM. None of them have got a socket on the back. One has got a wire aerial, 2 in fact are a wire aerial, 2 have got telescopic aerials. So what I've had to do, this is one radio, this is a lovely Australian radio from my mate Ron in Australia. He manufactures these. Anyway, I've had to put an F connector socket. There's the picture. See on the back there? I put a socket. So when I took the back off the radio, I found this where it went inside. Okay, this was connected to a point on the printed circuit board inside, on the sort of little tuner unit. What I did was, I discovered that this is actually coax. So all I did was, I took it, I left it connected there, took the other end to the F connector inside the socket I put on the back, inner to the, the inner of the coax to the inner of the F connector, and the braid of the coax to the outer of the F connector. Then I put the back on the radio and job done. It's not always going to be that easy. You might find that whether say the telescopic aerial is, there might be just one wire from that going to somewhere inside the radio. What you've got to do is take that wire off the telescopic aerial connection, put that to the inner on your F connector socket, the female on the back of the radio that you're putting there. The outer goes to the chassis of the radio. Now that's not always easy. There isn't a chassis normally. There might be a big metal screening can or something like that. Connect it to something like that. The inner is easy. You just, from the original telescopic aerial or wire aerial, that just goes to the inner connection on your F connector on the back of your radio. The outer, it needs to go. What you can sometimes do, if there's a headphone socket or a line out socket, use the ground connection of those for the ground connection of your F connector on the back of the radio. There's the F connector with the coax plugged in. So I now have a DAB FM radio with coax going outside, okay, into the garden, and we'll talk about aerials in a minute. So yeah, if you're lucky you'll have a socket on the back. If not, you're going to have to fit one. Or if you don't want to start taking the radio to bits, take the inner to the telescopic aerial on your radio, strip the coax back, wrap the inner around there, or use a crocodile clip, alligator clip, and the outer, what you can do is, normally if there's a headphone socket or something like that, the outer ring of the headphone socket will be ground. So you can take the braid to there. But I mean, I don't want to go into this. As I say, there are so many different types of DAB and FM radios that we could spend like 2 hours of the video just talking about that. Just a warning here, most of these radios run from the mains, power supply or whatever. So if you're going to take the back off, make sure you know what you're doing. There can be mains, high voltages inside the radio. If you're going to start fitting a socket wiring inside the radio, if you're not sure, get someone else to do it for you. It's not worth killing yourself just to get a decent signal, believe me. So this is a serious warning. Don't muck about in the back of the radio unless you know what you're doing. As I say, easy way, clip it to the telescopic aerial or the wire aerial, and then the braid, you want to ground it perhaps on the headphone socket or whatever else. line out socket, the outer of those, the RCA or phono plugs, the outer sockets, rather, the outer of those is usually ground, so you can use that. Now, this is my old, I've had this for years, Roberts radio, and I was just having a look on the back at the telescopic aerial, which is there, when I noticed there's a plate with 2 screws in there. So I took the plate off. Look, that slides over there. And I then thought, hang on, what is that? Is that an F connector? So I undid it. And it is indeed, there we are, on the end of the telescopic. That in there is an F connector. So that saves a lot of mucking about. That saves taking the radio to bits. So do check on your radio, whatever one you've got. Just have a look. There it is, that plate on the back there. Just take that off, and there's your F connector for your outside aerial. Couldn't be easier. This is a Roberts, what is it, Gemini 7 RD7. Yeah, as I say, I've had this for years. It's actually not a bad radio. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we'll now talk about the outside aerial itself. It's a shame that this day and age we have to have outside aerials for radio, but that's the way it is. So there we are. The BBC and everyone are pushing for DAB, everyone to take up DAB, despite the fact that a lot of people can't hear anything on DAB in their own homes, and they've got to fit an outside aerial. I'm going to talk about FM aerials first, because a lot of the info on FM aerials applies to DAB. I mean, skip through to DAB if you want, but I would recommend watching the FM bit, because it's all about directional, vertical, horizontal, various things like that, location of transmitters, etc., which does apply to DAB as well. So we'll start with FM, then go on to DAB. As far as FM aerials are concerned, right, that's the Isle of Wight, see? That's me in Worthing, south coast of the UK. Not 100% accurate on the map, but anyway, in the old days, when I was a boy, in the good old days, I need a pointer, that'll do. I'm here in Worthing. This was the Rowridge transmitter on the Isle of Wight. That transmitted VHF FM as well as UHF telly and stuff. VHF FM. So what people would do, because in those days the radios were valve, the old valve radios, they weren't particularly sensitive. I'm talking about the 60s, mid to late 50s and that sort of thing. What people would do is have an aerial like that. You'd have perhaps a 4-element or 6-element beam, or Yagi as it should be called. Okay, yeah, Yagi. Okay, and what you would do, that's the direction of it, it's directional obviously. What you would do is put that aerial here and point it to the Isle of Wight. Then you've got all your radio stations. There weren't local FM stations back in those days. All right, it wasn't BBC local commercial stations, all that sort of thing. Okay, they weren't around. What happened was, so that was ideal. That would be up on your chimney. The aerial rigger would point it like that. You might even have a signal strength meter, aim it properly, maximum signal strength, then bring the coax down into your house, into your radio or tuner or whatever. What's happened now is, okay, I'm still there, but I've got a transmitter in Worthing, actually in the town centre, a local radio, whatever it is. Okay, there's one there, right? There's one in Brighton. Let's say there's one there. There's one there. If I'm pointing my area at the Isle of Wight, I'm not going to get these properly, especially off the side of the beam of the Yagi. So what you do is have, what I will do here, was that me? I expect that's me. I would have an omnidirectional aerial. And I'll show you what it looks like. Hang on a second. That's that. Okay. If you put the aerial up that way, high up on a pole or on your chimney or whatever, it will receive, this is actually an FM aerial, proper VHF FM aerial, which I'm about to put up. It will receive all round. Okay. All directions around there, omnidirectional. The old Yagis, the beams, would be that way. That's vertically polarised. They would be that way, horizontally polarised. Okay, so this will only receive that way and that way, not that way or that way. So if there's the Isle of Wight over there, you've got to do it like that. You can have other elements, or perhaps just the one. The more elements, the better, the more gain the area will have. But now, as say there's the Isle of Wight, there's a transmitter over there on here. That's some I don't know, some commercial station. I want to hear that. Well, do I do that or that? What I do is that. I'm then receiving them all. Sorry about the aeroplane. Shoreham Airport's only about, what, 7 miles that way. And it's a sunny day. Once the sun comes out, all the aircraft take off from Shoreham, all the light aircraft. Yeah, so coming out of the Isle of Wight transmitter, okay, most car aerials are vertical. And the old aerials on the chimneys, most of them were horizontal. I mean, you can have a beam, a vertical beam, you know, with all the elements that way. But it was deemed better to put it that way for some reason. We won't go into that, there are reasons for that. So the horizontal, so the Isle of Wight transmitter had to transmit both vertical and horizontal. And what they did was circular, like that. Again, we won't go into that too much. They transmit both. So you've got your car radio aerial that way, your beam on your house, your Yagi that way. It's circular polarization, continually going like that. Okay, so that's why now, I mean, you can use a beam, because in the old days, before there were all these transmitters here, there was just the one here, all right? And that transmitted, what was it, Radio 2, Radio 3, Radio 4, not even Radio 1 in those days, BBC this is, and I think that was about it. There was nothing else. The FM band was empty, right? It was empty. So, you know, sticking a beam that way, then you've got the 3 programs. I think that was all. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But now, of course, you've got aerial transmitters all round. You know, you've got, I don't know, there's various ones popping up all over the place. As I say, there's one just a quarter of a mile away in the town centre. To be honest, for that, you don't need an aerial. It's only down the road. Okay, so that's the vertical, the horizontal, and all that business sorted out. So you want a vertical aerial for VHF FM. When wiring up the coax, okay, this is the FM aerial. I say FM, it's VHF FM in actual fact. People say FM for band 2, which this is, and they say AM for medium wave. It seems to have caught on. I mean, you know, to be correct, this is a VHF FM aerial. Anyway, on this type, there's no F connector. Talk about those in a minute. There's 2 terminals. You've got a little feed through point on that cap. So wire inner and outer. It doesn't actually matter which way round, but people don't normally put the inner wire on top and the braid of the coax on the bottom. Okay, so wire those 2. Put a bit of silicone round there, because you don't want water getting into it. If water gets into the coax, like capillary reaction, it goes all the way down right to the back of your radio. Even if there's 50 feet of coax, it will eventually come out the other end where your radio is. So you don't want water getting in the coax. Bit of silicone around there, pop the cover back on tight, and that's a good job. What I do, where there's nuts and bolts like this, I just go wipe silicone all round there and round there. Then this is obviously will be the clamp onto the pole, wherever you're going to fix it. So run your coax from that hole to there. Do it in a loop like that, facing down and then along. That way water will drip off there. Not if you do it that way, water will run down the coax and it could eventually go through into the connection box. So out of the box, down like that and up, and then along, whatever, and then down your pole. That's a bit short actually. That could have done with being like that to get this away from the pole more, but not to worry. I don't want to do any sort of DXing or anything. This is just for general VHF FM reception on band 2. That's that popped on there. So 75 ohm coax, remember, 75 ohm coax. The satellite stuff's cheap enough. That's available all over the place these days. So just look up black or white 75 ohm satellite TV type coax. As for where to mount the aerial, I'm no good at heights, so I'm not going up on the roof to clamp it to the chimney. I'm not going to do that. I've just got a pole. I've got a 10-foot pole out in the garden, and there's a wall bracket. It's clear of the house. This is on like an outbuilding bit. Clamped it to the wall of that, and the aerial itself when I've done it, will be about, well, I think about 15 feet off the ground, something like that, which is fine. It's away from the house by a good, I don't know, 12, 15 feet, and it's in the clear. It's out in the open. As I say, I don't want to listen to long distance DX type stations, so I'm not going to put it up on the chimney. because the DAB aerial is going on the same pole, but that's another issue. So yeah, anywhere, it depends. As I say, it depends what you want to do. If you want to listen to stations far away, then up on the chimney, or even better still, a pole on the chimney with your aerial on top of that. No, that's getting silly then. But away from the house as far as possible, if you can. If you have to put it on the back wall of the house on a pole like that sticking out, don't worry, you're going to receive a pretty good signal from the majority of FM stations around you in your area. Right, you won't believe this. There's the DAB aerial. I'm not going to actually be using that. That's going on my pole I've already got. But look at this, the DAB aerial, okay, folded dipole, coax, rubber boot to go over the F connector, an F connector and a coax plug, all this, the whole lot ready to go, £14.99, that includes postage, 15 quid. I mean, that's incredible. That, if you want to use this, that obviously just screws to the wall. Yeah, I won't be using that bit, as I said. £15. I mean, that is just incredible. It's not bad quality actually either. It's sturdy enough. That's pretty good. Anyway, if you want to buy that, I don't know whether I should really be advertising here, unless these people want to pay me. Actually, they can send me a free aerial. It's Digitalis, so it's digital IS. Okay, the word digital IS, Digitalis Direct, and there we are, Digitalis Direct Co UK. That's amazing. I shall give them excellent feedback. I got it from eBay. Digitalis Direct Co UK. Right, that's enough advertising going on. So what you've got to do is put your F connector on there, obviously, and there it is. There's the F connector. Screw that into there. Now the thing there's a rubber boot you get with it, which you can put over the thing. What I do, I tend not to use those. I use self-amalgamating tape, which I've got here. It's only what, 2 or 3 quid or something. This, you've probably heard of it, self-amalgamating tape. You take a bit off, take the backing off it, stretch it tightly around the plug. Make sure you get it around the plug, the thread and the coax, and it all sort of moulds into one, self-amalgamating as the name suggests. So that's it. Basically, that's all there is. All DAB transmissions are verticals, right? So you won't want it that way. That's going to be that way. That's going to say this is the pole. I'm going to put the FM aerial here, down there, DAB aerial there. That's it. Job done. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. With all aerials, the secret is with all aerials, if it's a secret, high as possible and out in the open as possible, away from objects, buildings, trees, etc. That applies to medium wave aerials, you know, AM radio, short wave, VHF, UHF. It's not a secret really, but you know, the rule of thumb is any aerial as high as possible and in the clear as possible. In this case, as I've said, it doesn't matter too much because I'm not interested in, you know, strong signals from far afield. Okay, that's it. I think what I shall do now is go and stick this up on my pole. Just out of interest, here's a photo. This is the patio table. Ignore the white reel of coax. You see the black coax? That's what comes out of the house. You see that orange piece of wire in there, just stuffed in the end? I put a coupler in there to make it female, to poke the wire in. Just on that, this was an experiment. That piece of wire is about 1 foot long, and I tried on DAB just to see if it got anything at all. Do you know, you get very good reception, DAB reception, and FM in fact, on that bit of orange wire there. I mean, look at that. It's what, 3 feet above the ground, just poked in the end of the coax, and it's quite incredible. So once the folded dipole is up there, which I'm going to go and do now, it should be pretty good. See you in a minute. Right, I stink of aluminium. Now, funny smell, isn't it? Got a spanner there. It's now up on the pole. Look, have a look at that. There we are. There's the FM aerial on the left, DAB aerial on the right. look at the colour of the sky. Just take this photo. Look at the colour of the sky. It's just about to lash with rain. So I was lucky. So that's it. Job done. I've run the coax. You know, it comes from the house. Both of them, FM and DAB. Checked it on the tuner. Absolutely brilliant. It's amazing. And it's only, as I say, what, 15 feet above the ground, the aerials themselves. So that's not bad at all. I'm really pleased with that. Have I mentioned you can put these aerials in the attic if you want? You know, you don't have to stick them outside at all. It depends on the signal strength in your area, of course. And as I've been saying all along, you know, if you're in a weak spot, like live in the middle of the sticks, miles from the nearest transmitter, you're probably going to need a beam, a Yagi, and find out where your DAB or FM transmitter is, and then point it at that. Remember, if you're going to do that for FM, horizontal beam. If you're going to do it for DAB, turn the beam that way, vertical. Okay, so all your elements are that way. And then find out where it is and aim it at that. But, you know, for most of us, you know, my situation, DAB signal here is useless, but with just that simple folded dipole on a pole outside, it's absolutely brilliant. I'm getting stations, I'm in Worthing, Sussex, I'm getting stations from Hampshire on DAB, perfectly clear, good signal from Hampshire that I'm not even meant to be receiving here on that little aerial. So really pleased with that. So when you've done all this, you've got your outside aerial up, you've got your F connector on the back of your radio. Got my notes here, look, different jumper, see, notice that, yeah, you see, observant among you. So you've done all that, you've set your radio up here. This is your lounge, funny looking lounge. This is by your chair where you sit, there's your telly. And you think, hang on, we'll move the lounge round. My wife does this. Okay, everything changed. You've got your coax, you've done it all neatly, coming in here. You want to use the radio over there. Well, you can't. You then got to rerun the coax all round the room. It does seem to me, in this day and age, that to have to do all this, aerials, coax, all this, to listen to the radio is a bit balmy. In the old days, you'd have a transistor radio like this. You'd take it from room to room, you'd listen on medium wave, FM. You didn't have, for a start, you didn't have to have this, plug it in. You didn't have to have outside aerials and stuff. I don't know, it's all, we seem to be going backwards. I don't know, we seem to be going backwards. Just a couple of things. These aerial combiners, say you want to bring coax into different rooms, you get aerial splitters and combiners. I'd steer away from those if I were you. An aerial splitter, all right, it splits the signal so you can have coax down to that room and to that room from one aerial, say up on the chimney or wherever. But you're halving your signal, or more than halving the signal. You really want a distribution amplifier. If you want coax going to several rooms from one aerial, a proper distribution amplifier for DAB frequencies, made by, I don't know, someone like Lab Gear. There's a good make, Lab Gear, something like that. That's just a thought. Don't start using these splitters. Combined VHF and FM aerials, you know, FM and DAB aerials, is combined things where you've got your circular FM, then your vertical DAB aerial. I don't know. I've never tried one, but I would steer clear of those. I like a dedicated aerial for DAB and a dedicated aerial for FM. Not all mixed up. Well, it's convenient, of course. One coax coming down, one socket straight in your radio. You've got DAB and FM. It is convenient, but I don't know how well they work. If you've got obviously DAB and FM coaxes coming down, you've only got one socket here. You're going to have to swap over every time you want to go from DAB to FM or whatever. You can buy coax switches. Don't get a cheap and nasty one. The two coaxes go in and then one coming out, and you can switch DAB, FM. Get a decent one of those. I mean, it depends how serious you're going to get with all this. If you've got a nice expensive DAB, FM tuner, then rather than have to keep changing the aerial around the back, it might be an idea to buy a coax switch. Just put it somewhere convenient, out of sight, and that's a good way of doing it. That's what I'm going to do, because I've got a nice Ocean Digital tuner. What is it, WR10, the new model, Ocean Digital WR10, and it really is an excellent bit of kit. And I've got both coaxes coming down. Of course, there's only one socket on the back, so I'm going to at some stage get a switch. That's that. What else? Why 75 ohm coax? A dipole, you know, the FM dipole, ordinary dipole like that, the feed impedance in the middle is about 72 ohms. So 75 ohm coax is kind of convenient for that. It works for that. With a folded dipole, as in the DAB one you've seen, the feed impedance is 300 ohms. Now that's not going to match your 75 ohm coax. So there's a matching transformer, a balun inside, the box. There's a balun inside there to match the 300 ohm aerial to the 75 ohm coax. The F connector on the back of here should be 75 ohms anyway, so hopefully that will all match. What you can do, if you don't want to drill holes through the wall in your house, take coax outside to the aerial, what you can do is take a bit of coax from here, right? Instead of this aerial, take your coax from there, I don't know, have a few feet of coax, run it, say, up the wall somewhere if it doesn't look too ugly, and then put a piece of wire from the centre of the coax out there. So what you're effectively doing is raising that aerial there from here to up there near the ceiling. There are all sorts of things you can do like that. You can just strip back the outer of the coax and leave the inner. There's all sorts of stuff on the internet about doing that, so I'm not going to, the videos are going to get too long. You'll be dozing off and going to sleep or going down the pub. I've just been outside making some more adjustments and it's pouring with rain. Anyway, everything's working well. That's it. Good luck with your aerials, F connectors, bits of coax and whatever you're going to do. Hope it works out for you. And thank you for watching as always, and I shall see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.